So let's talk about that Ontario Liberal leadership race with Rob Benzie, the Toronto Star's bureau chief at Queen's Park. Rob, good to see you.
Good to see you, Andrew.
So, Rob, Bonnie Crombie joins the race now to lead the Ontario Liberals. The voting is still months away, but is she now the clear frontrunner?
I mean, we had an abacus poll for the Toronto Star this week, Andrew, that showed that she is the front runner in terms of name recognition, in terms of her favorability ratings, which are much higher than her main competitors, Yasser Naqvi, the MP for Ottawa Centre, and Nate Erskine-Smith, the MP for Beaches East York. So two federal members are jumping to provincial politics. Now, of course, Yasser Naqvi is a very well-known guy at Queen's Park. He was the Attorney General, former president of the Ontario Liberal Party. So he's a formidable candidate as well. And Erskine Smith's a good organizer. So with these three main candidates, and Ted Hsu is the fourth candidate, he's the MPP for Kingston and the Islands. But the three main candidates are really injecting a lot of interest in this race. Bonnie Crombie, of course, the mayor of Mississauga, one of the biggest cities in the country. She's arguably one of the most prominent municipal politicians in Canada. She's all over our local airwaves here in Toronto and a familiar face. And she was a former MP as well, so she's a familiar face in Ottawa. And I think she's really added a lot of zip and dazzle to this contest, and it's saying something, Andrew, because remember the Liberal Party is nowhere literally in Ontario right now. They only have 7 MPPs in the 124 member legislature. You need 12 for official standing, so they don't have official status as a party in that house, which is crazy when you think that this is a party that governed Ontario under Dalton McGuinty and Kathleen Wynne from 2003 to 2018, and Doug Ford's Conservatives wiped that away in 2018 and then were reelected last June, almost a year and 2 weeks ago. And they have made it very, very difficult for the Libs. Yet, having said that, even though the Libs are not even an official party and the NDP is the official opposition under Marit Stiles, there's a lot of interest in this party because they've attracted some big name candidates for their leadership.
So you talked about Bonnie Crombie's prominence and her recognition, and you talked about the candidates. She is, as you said, staying on as mayor of Mississauga. What's her biggest challenge going to be now over the next few months as she campaigns, as she tries to get support inside the party?
Well, I mean, she's going to be the main focus of Conservative attacks. Doug Ford, for whatever reason, she lives rent-free inside his head, Andrew. I've never seen the premier so concerned about an opposition politician as he is about her, and I think it's because he respects her ability as a retail politician. He's very effective at that stuff. So is she. She's also a 905 politician, and the Conservatives hold nearly every single seat in the 905. I think everything but one in the wide range of seats around the Greater Toronto area. So that's a huge risk for their members. If she comes in and starts peeling away PC seats in the 2026 election, those things kind of fall like dominoes. So they're concerned about this. Ford himself is concerned about this. He has a great affinity for municipal politicians. He comes from municipal politics, so he knows and it's actually, ironically, has worked pretty closely with Bonnie Crombie on a few initiatives, right, including the end of Peel Region as an entity. And they're both Ford and Crombie are kind of their political matriarch, their political talisman was the late former Mississauga Mayor Hazel McCallion. Both of them were very close to her. So this is almost like Hazel's children fighting it out if it's Doug Ford versus Bonnie Crombie in the 2026 election.
And just building on that, another interesting factor is we've already heard a bit from Bonnie Crombie say how she would position the Liberal Party in the next election in terms of the political spectrum on the center right, presumably to try and get some of those Conservative voters back into the Liberal fold. How do you think that kind of view that you're going to hear from Bonnie Crombie is going to play off against the other candidates?
Well, I mean, I think it's going to be, she walked back. That was her first day when she was first talking about being a candidate. She did, I think, 23 or 24 interviews that first day. And in a couple of them, she talked about the need for a center-right alternative. And some of her foes or her rivals pounced on that, and I understand why. I mean, a Liberal like Nate Erskine-Smith, who's probably more left of center, he was concerned about that kind of rhetoric. He said, "Look, we already have a center-right party in the Progressive Conservatives, so do we really need to be in that same space?" And he has a point. Having said that, I talked to Crombie's campaign team about that, and they say Ontarians don't think in left or right terms. Most people are in the center. I would argue that Doug Ford is a centrist. Frankly, he's the biggest spending premier in the history of Ontario, spending almost 30% more money this year than Kathleen Wynne's Liberals did in their last year in 2018, and that was a pre-election year when they were running up spending quite heavily. So the idea that Doug Ford is somehow spendthrift is not exactly borne out by the actual numbers. That being said, I think what Crombie's pitch to voters is that she is a reasonable, viable alternative to Ford, because there are a lot of people who may not mind the Progressive Conservatives, but they don't feel comfortable with Ford himself, and her favorability rating is much higher than his so far. Now, no Tory attack ad has been launched against her yet, and a lot of things can happen if she's the Liberal leader. I expect them to trot out a whole bunch of stuff about things that her record in Mississauga. Even some of her rivals are saying, "Look, Mississauga didn't do enough on housing starts. They didn't build enough housing during her tenure as mayor." Nate Erskine-Smith was talking about that this week. But she's the front runner, and she has the kind of the sheen of and has attracted really talented people around her campaign and team and so on. So she has the sheen of a winner, but it's a one-member, one-vote contest, Andrew. The Liberals have never done this before, and lots of strange things can happen. In 2015, in the Ontario PC leadership race, Patrick Brown, who was a little-known backbencher from Ottawa, federal member, he came in and beat Christine Elliott, who was very, very popular in PC circles. He beat her by 2-1 in a one-member, one-vote election, and she had all the caucus support. She had a lot of money behind her. She had a lot of big-name operatives on her side, and Elliott didn't win. So anything can happen in a one-member, one-vote contest. It's not a delegated convention like they used to pick their leaders, in which the party insiders kind of have more of a say, and you build a consensus toward the leader. And that's how Dalton McGuinty, for example, was able to win in 1996. It's how Kathleen Wynne was able to win in 2013, by being a lot of people's second choices and so on. I think in this contest, it's going to be interesting to see how people. Nate Erskine-Smith and Yasser Naqvi are really capable organizers. As I said, Naqvi was the president of this party. He knows the Ontario Liberal Party probably better than anyone alive, and that can translate into the 10 people or the 100 people you need in an unheld riding, and they have lots of unheld ridings where the Liberal Riding Association is dormant. Someone like Yasser Naqvi can go in there and revive that and score 100 points for that toward the leadership. And so who knows? It's going to be very, very hard to tell.
Yes, it's going to be very interesting over the next few months ahead of that vote later this year. We have to leave it there for now, though. Rob Benzie, always good to hear from you.
Thank you, Andrew.